All right, so yeah, our talk tonight is about letting go and renunciation. All right, so yes, this attachment, upadana, is our natural human tendency to cling to things is because we think that will make us happy. Those worldly goods or our identity, our success, the people that we're attached to. We look to those things for lasting happiness, but all things are impermanent, so they do not give us this ultimate happiness. So Ajahn Chah, who is an incredible awakened Thai forest teacher, he was the teacher of Jack Cornfield, among many others, and Ajahn Brahm, you may have come across as well. Incredible lineage. Ajahn Chah said, try to do everything with a mind that lets go. Do not expect any praise or reward. If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will know complete peace and freedom. Your struggle with the world will have come to an end. All right, so I'm going to explore this. How do we let go and what do we let go of to allow ourselves this opening into true happiness, which is not dependent on anything. So the first is letting go of sensual pleasures, worldly pleasures. And this is maybe when you think of renunciation, maybe that's what you think of, like a monk or a nun has renounced, their hair, they've renounced their house or their belongings, their clothes, and they're just wearing a simple robe. Thinking of monastics, that's renunciation in the worldly sense or sensual sense of the physical senses and material things. So you don't have to be a monk or a nun, and you don't have to live like that in order to awaken and be free from this kind of attachment. And you don't have to be uncomfortable and forego all the pleasures of life either, because it's not the pleasures or the material things themselves that can cause suffering. It's our attachment to them, it's our relationship to them. So that can be the problem. So if we, as you know, I'm sure you can think of many people who are really attached to their car, for example, or to their clothes, their fashionable clothes, or to their latest mobile phone that they got. And often those kinds of attachments to material things are to do with how we view ourselves and how the image we project to others. So actually, we're only really attached to them in as much as they make us look good to others often. So that's where thinking about our identity, how we perceive ourselves, our attachment to self is huge. So I'm going to explore that more in a minute. But as we all know, really, if we reflect for about 30 seconds, that when we cling on to things that are so fleeting, like fashion, oh my gosh, how fleeting is fashion? Uh, that, we try and be admired and look good and look successful, but these things are temporary. Something changes, and it's gone. And then we suffer again and we have to try for, the next newest mobile phone because our mobile phone is no longer the latest. So that's an endless cycle of suffering if we depend on those worldly goods. And it can be quite severe. People can feel worthless. A wealthy business person who has an amazing house, a huge house, and multiple cars, and all the, things they possibly could want. And then they go bankrupt, deep shame, deep feelings of worthlessness because they're dependent upon those things to feel good, to feel worthwhile. So, yes, the Buddha taught renunciation of worldly goods and sensual pleasures as the pathway to happiness. so that if you lose any of those things, you're still fine. You can be happy with or without those things. Recently, I was reading a book, a wonderful book that it's quite well known. You may have come across The Cave in the Snow. Has anyone read that yet? So it's about the Tibetan Buddhist nun called Tenzin Palmo. She was a British woman who had a deep connection to Tibetan Buddhist teachers, her guru, and she went to India to pursue the path of enlightenment. And she went and decided to live up high up in the mountains in northern India in a cave for 12 years. She lived on her own there, meditating for, I think it was like 15 hours a day. And she, for the last 3 years, she didn't see anyone else for 3 years. Like that is serious commitment. And it's quite amazing reading about her story. It's a great book, actually. I have it here. Um, it's a really inspiring story and it's beautifully written. And what is amazing is the level of physical and material discomfort. She meditates and sleeps in a box, a meditation box, so she barely ever lies down. She just has simple food and cooks, very basic food in her cave, very few possessions, hardly, doesn't go anywhere, just stays there in the cave and around the cave. And this is for 12 years. I think once a year she would have to go and renew her visa for living in India. And she was so happy. She just wanted to meditate, follow the path her guru was telling her of the meditation practices and awaken. And she was so passionate and driven by that. She was happy. She didn't need any of the worldly, pleasures or material things. So, I mean, that's an extreme, one sort of extreme end of it. Um, but, there is a greater happiness, I guess, is the lesson that she can really, really show us. But yeah, you don't have to forego everything, as I said, in order to be happy. Uh, we can enjoy, beautiful food that we eat, or you might get a really soft woolen jumper and really enjoy the softness. There's nothing wrong with enjoying material things. Uh, I guess the aspect around material things is that consumption has ethical implications. So, how much we consume is consuming the world's resources. If we have, 5 houses and 10 cars and we fly everywhere, we're taking resources that there's less for others, and we're causing damage, obviously, with waste and carbon emissions and so on. So, there's an ethical, so the Buddha's teachings of the precepts, the 5 precepts, would guide us there. Okay, so still on this theme of sensual pleasures or, the material and sensual, an important thing or aspect of living that we can be very attached to, and I know I have been and have worked with this, is our attachment to feeling good all the time and not wanting to feel bad. And coffee is a huge part of this, if you think about it. So many people wake up in the morning, feel crap. What am I going to do? Go and get a coffee. And then, I feel great. And then, later in the day, I need another coffee. You may not drink coffee. It might be tea, might be Red Bull, but caffeine is a big part of this. And I personally really have had to struggle with that over the years because I'm basically allergic to caffeine. It gives me, it contributes to me getting migraines. As many of you know, I get regular bad migraines. And I also don't sleep if I have caffeine. It's just not good. I used to, in my 20s and 30s, basically until I became a mother, I could drink coffee and then my body just changed and I couldn't. But I have struggled with this so my daughter's 13, so 13 years of accepting I can't have stimulants, can't have coffee, tea, all of that. And I can't feel good. So I wake up in the morning groggy, tired. That's just how it is. I can't change that. And that's been quite a journey. So I've had to really let go of that um, need to feel awake, busy, energetic, alert, all of that. So yeah, it I've gone back and forth where just like someone who, others are addicted more to alcohol or other kind of drugs. There's all sorts of addictions, overeating, porn, video games, TV, all sorts of things. It's quite a journey letting go of the control that it can have over us. And we keep going back for that hit of dopamine. And actually, it's pretty interesting that the anticipation of getting the hit, the coffee or the alcohol or the drugs or whatever, the anticipation is often more enjoyable. There's more dopamine there than when we actually get the thing. So that's pretty interesting, I think. So letting go of that, wanting to feel good and the addiction to that, I think is quite a challenge. So our practice is huge. So just noticing, surfing that urge to go and get the beer or the coffee or the whatever it is that is not good for you. And I'm not saying you should all quit coffee. I'm just saying if it's not good for you, for me, that's when you kind of need to quit things that are not serving you. All right. So the next one aspect of our life and experience to be let go of, because it may not be serving us, is around letting go of the self, our attachment to self. So identity, um, aging, not aging, not getting sick. Yeah, that's a huge one for most of us. So our identity, in addition to, having the big house or car, those kinds of material things, our things like our achievements, our career, how we perceive our status in the world, like do people respect us or do we feel respected? Um, our relationships, do we have children or not? All these things uh, relate to how we feel about ourselves because we're social animals. It's about survival. If we feel like we're rejected by our social group, that's deeply painful and fearful. So we have a lot of attachment to our own success in the world and our identity related to that. So again, the more attached we are to it, the more painful it is when it ends or, we lose it in some way. So it's very common. I'm sure you've all met someone who's having either a midlife crisis or a retirement crisis because their career is over or declining, or they're having to figure out who am I if I'm no longer working, huge hours and defined by my job. And you can think of other examples beyond job, other roles. So being a parent, that can be a big one. When your children grow up and move out and go off into the world, who am I if I'm no longer, parenting this child, which has taken up so much of my life and defined my identity in many ways? And of course, being youthful and healthy. Now, there's a massive one that we all have to contend with. What happens when our body starts to age and get sick? Um, it's no longer the way it used to be. I know my husband's complaining he used to be able to run 10 kilometers every morning, and now he's exhausted after he runs 10 kilometers. And I wasn't very sympathetic because I've never been able to run 10 kilometers. But, it depends where you set your bar. Um, and, it causes him suffering that he wants to be able to continue at that level. So this is where the Dharma and our meditation practice is so helpful. I know, I remember my dear teacher, Carol Perry, saying to me, and she's 80 now, about to be 81. And, her body's getting tired and old and so on. And she's very aware that she's going to die soon, who knows when. Um, and she said to me, this is where the practice really comes into its own to be so helpful and powerful is facing this inevitable aging, sickness, and death. And we are so lucky to have this practice that supports us in dealing with inevitable challenges as we get older. There's a story that I've never forgotten. I read years and years ago in Tara Brach's book, Radical Acceptance, one of her early books. And it just touched me so deeply. She writes in there this story of it was a man who was a Dharma teacher in the US, and he was invited, and he had retired from Dharma teaching, and he basically was getting older, and he started to get some dementia, some memory loss and a bit of confusion and so on. But still really functioning well, living life. He was invited to come to his Sangha, to the Dharma group where he'd been a teacher for many years, and to give a short talk as a special event. And he prepared a beautiful talk, came along, sat down in the circle, um, ready to give a Dharma talk, and his mind just went blank. Couldn't think what he was doing there, what was the talk about, just complete blank. And imagine, I'm giving you a talk, like if that happened right now, like, whoa, that's pretty scary. And what he did was incredible. He just started naming what was going on. I'm noticing confusion here, blankness, fears arising, just started naming what he was feeling and what was happening. And oh, what a teaching, for the group. Rather than trying to pretend everything was okay, he just said, this is what's happening for me. My mind doesn't work so well anymore, and I've just gone a blank. So there's a letting go and an acceptance of what is. Yeah, so Tara Brach, as many of you know well, teaches that compassion is the way to deal with this. So when things are really challenging, like that moment for that man, he gave himself compassion and grace to just allow things to be as they are, even when they're really difficult. All right. So I'd like to offer the possibility that how we approach our practice of meditation can actually determine how we feel about ourselves and ease this attachment and clinging. So as I said earlier, we were practicing letting go in the meditation earlier this evening. So how we bring compassion and love can also ease this struggle, the stress and struggle. So a wonderful teacher of mindfulness-based stress reduction in the US called Bob Sharples, he says, don't meditate to fix yourself, to heal yourself, or to improve yourself, or to redeem yourself. Rather, do it as an act of love, of deep, warm friendship to yourself. In this way, there's no longer any need for the subtle aggression of self-improvement, for the endless guilt of not doing enough. It offers the possibility of an end to the ceaseless round of trying so hard that wraps so many people's lives in a knot. Instead, there is now meditation as an act of love. How endlessly delightful and encouraging. Yeah, so I love that. So starting with your meditation practice, bring kindness and love to it rather than this improvement. I've got to fix myself or do better or push myself harder. And that is a practice that you can then bring into your everyday life of responding to your own stuff, whatever comes up, your challenges that arise, your emotions. So, yeah, so that's the next sort of area of letting go that I think is hugely important and our practice can help is allowing or letting go of fixing ourselves, allowing the struggle, the difficulties, essentially allowing yourself to be flawed. So, I want to tell you guys right now, I'm flawed. I'm not perfect, and it's okay. And each of you are flawed as well, and it's really okay. So, allowing ourselves to not have to be fixed up, and to improved all the time. So I remember Jack Cornfield in speaking in a talk about the Dalai Lama saying, you in the West, you focus too much on suffering. And he thought that we Dharma teachers need to teach letting go. Uh, yeah, because we're getting in the West, we're too caught up in our psychological issues or problems or the baggage that we carry from our lives. And it can be that meditators get into a somewhat self-obsessed path of wanting to root out these psychological problems or pains and fix them all up. And look, I know that's what brings most of us to the practice in the first place. So actually, it's natural and nothing wrong with that. We're experiencing pain, we're unhappy, we want freedom from it. And we come to meditate, and there's some fleeting moments of freedom. And so we keep going. That's awesome. That's important. But I also can recall my own experience as a beginning meditator where I got obsessed or agonized, I'd agonize over my inner demons. And I can remember, retreat after retreat, really trying to root out you know, my problems and my issues and fix them all up. And on one retreat, I remember I was obsessed. I became quite obsessed with these bad feelings, that I was feeling a sense of loneliness and fear and feeling not good enough. And I wanted to fix it. So I became sort of obsessed with rooting out these feelings. And I recall going to have the interview with my teacher on the retreat who knew me well. And I told her I had these feelings of fear and um, loneliness, which I can't remember what they were actually about, but I can remember the feelings. And I effectively asked her to tell me how to make them go away. And she told me that I can't help you. I remember saying, I don't know what else to tell you, Suzie. And on reflection, this was because I was barking up the wrong tree. I was trying to get rid of these feelings and it was not going to work. So essentially what I learned, over time was over more practice was to let go about them, not make them a big problem and not have to fix everything and allow, loneliness to be there or fear to arise. It's okay. So being human is just that's just part of the journey. All right. So allowing our pain and suffering. So it's the great, wonderful paradox of the Buddha's teachings. And yeah, going towards those difficult feelings can be I find is the pathway to freedom from those difficult feelings. So another wonderful Dharma teacher and monk, Ajahn Sucitto, he said a lot of the Buddhist approach is in not doing, relaxing, softening, relinquishing harmful and unskillful habits. And he said, establish a firm foundation from which to let go. Don't get fascinated by content. Just establish the frame of reference. So, content, the thoughts and the issues. He said, everything is yes in terms of its existence, but no in terms of getting activated by it. Just acknowledging and letting go, recognizing there's an alternative, and then the energy of the activation shifts by itself and discharges. So letting go or allowing the content, not getting caught up in the content, and just saying yes to what is, to this experience. So this maybe not. The question may have arisen in your mind that about letting go is, if we let go, do we not just become indifferent? So the pain in the world, the pain that we see, the suffering we see in the world, if we just like, oh yeah, I've let go of everything, do we just stop caring and perhaps stop feeling, stop experiencing the highs and lows? People have said to me over the years they'd prefer to live life to its fullest and experience the highs and lows than to be neutral all the time. They want to live passionately. And if you watch the news and see the war in Iran or Gaza or elsewhere, or the forests being clear felled, do we just let go and give up so that we don't suffer? No, clearly not. So this is really important. I feel that if we're letting go, it's not about letting go into indifference. So indifference, this is not what the Buddha taught. So indifference is the near enemy to equanimity. So equanimity is one of the 4 heart practices and also one of the factors of awakening. It's a very important aspect of Dharma practice. Equanimity is not cold and indifferent. It's based on loving kindness, actually. So one of my favorite ways of a way of understanding equanimity is being able to be as close to life's pleasant experiences as to the unpleasant ones, not as far away from either. So I love that way of looking at equanimity. It's about being able to be as close to life's pleasant experiences as to the unpleasant ones, and not as far away from either. So we can enjoy things, we can handle pain and struggle. We don't have to run away from them, but we're not overwhelmed because we have this solid foundation. So yeah, letting go is not about running away from those experiences of, joy and excitement, or of struggle and pain. And yeah, I'd like to finish with a quote from the Buddha about this equanimity. It's in the Dhammapada. The Buddha said that just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame. On hearing the teachings, the wise become perfectly purified like a lake, deep, clear, and still. The wise renounce attachment for everything. The virtuous do not prattle with a yearning for pleasures. The wise show no elation or depression when touched by happiness or sorrow.